If you have ever thought about remodeling a room or really just updating your bedroom, like in my case, this is a video you really want to watch because we learned a few things through the process that we really hadn't thought about before. So if this is something that you might be interested, stay tuned because we're going to do a remodel. Hi, welcome back to my channel. My name is Tamara and this is Reimagine 50 Plus, where I take on different things with a different perspective than I would have had 10 or 15 or even 20 years ago. Because not only am I 50 plus, I'm now 60 plus. We did a lot of the work on this house where we live 20 years ago, and we hadn't done much to the bedroom, and we decided, hey, we've done it before. Let's finally update that room. Let me tell you, we learned a few things. So let me just say this, I am sorry that I did not get a before picture. That's because my husband and his buddy came in and demoed the room while I was out of town. I guess he thought, that's great, she's out of town, she won't be here, it won't be bothering her, all the noise. So at the end of the video, when I show you the after, I'm sorry I won't be able to show you the before. Just trust me, it was ugly. Once you take it down to the 2x4s, you are now ready for your electrician to come in. So we had the electrician come in and add not only outlets, but address some of the older wiring and bring that up to date. While he was in doing the wiring, I asked him wall sconces. And I said, you know, is that possible? He said, of course, you can have anything you want. So I decided, yes, I want to get wall sconces. Now here's what I want you to know. Once you choose where you want those wall sconces to be, you are committed. You can't really rearrange the furniture. So once you commit, that's the way it's going to be. Think about that. Putting sconces in are great, but then there's the other side of the coin too. Speaking of lighting, I wanted to touch on something that I did not talk about on my last video when I was talking about choosing paint colors, and that is how lighting affects the color that you choose. I did talk about how you get direct light from outside and how that will change from morning light to evening light. But what I want to talk about now is how the electric lighting that you have in your room will affect your paint. And so something to think about, again, when you're choosing paint and when you're choosing the flooring, your bedding, everything that goes into this room, those lights have an effect on the colors. Most of us grew up with incandescent lights, you know, the old rounded light bulb. It's harder and harder to find incandescent lights because they're just not efficient. They're not power efficient, but they do cast a nice, soft glow that is very flattering to the skin. It's lovely, but it does cast a warm glow, which of course is going to affect the way everything looks in your room. Now, a fluorescent bulb is going to cast a blue-green. Think about in an office. That's where we typically would see fluorescent bulbs. They're cool, and most people don't have them in their bedroom, but you might have it on a reading light just because you want a nice bright light for readings. Now, a halogen bulb is a very white light. It's great for reading. It's great for seeing colors as they really are. The other thing about having a halogen light is because it's such a natural light, it makes the transition from daylight to evening much more comfortable. And that might be something you want to consider when choosing your lighting because it makes it less jarring whenever you have those halogen lights come on. Now there's something, it's not new, but it's something maybe new to you, and certainly if you're doing an upgrade to a room or you're remodeling, it's probably something you didn't think about 20 years ago, and that's called a compact fluorescent light. And a compact fluorescent light is something you control the tone. You can make it warm, you can make it cool, you can make it white, and so that's an option that you may look to. A little more expensive, but definitely covers a lot more ground. And then there are LEDs, and we all know about LEDs, and they're fun, and you can add LEDs in any color, or you can control the color. When you buy an LED, if you want to put it on a dimmer, like I have my wall sconces on, then you need to make sure that you're buying the LED that is dimmable, because a lot, if not most, standard LEDs are not dimmable. So if you want it to dim, make sure you buy the right LED bulb. There was very little, if any, insulation in the walls. The sun sets on our side of the house. And so it was always the coldest in the morning and always the hottest in the afternoon. So we did the insulation and then we were ready for the drywall. We went from 1/2 inch drywall to 5/8. 5/8, a little bit bigger than our original 1/2 inch. Well, what that means is that everything in the room is going to fit differently now. So all of the crown molding that we wanted to reuse now had to be cut. So we had to get a miter saw and be able to cut all of the crown molding in order to fit back into the ceiling. Same thing goes for the baseboards. None of it fit because the whole room was now tighter. Something else that was discovered is that the blackout blinds that I had ordered now did not fit. And so my husband had a little extra work on his hands trying to replace the drywall within the frame of the window so that the blinds that I had custom ordered would fit. The other thing that people don't realize is that a 1/2 inch sheet of drywall weighs 60 pounds. 60 times how many pieces of drywall do you need really adds up. So we hired someone to do the drywall, but that's only step one. Another thing that has to be done to the drywall before you can go a step farther is you have to do what's called mudding. These guys know what they're doing, they have the equipment that's needed, and they do the job really well. If you didn't see my video from last week on paint, then I encourage you to go watch that because I talk about how drywall is very porous and it absorbs everything. And so that's part of what's going on whenever the mudders come in. They are putting a coating on this drywall, but all of this takes time. So 4 days later, the mudding of the room was finally completed and we were able to move on to the next step. Okay, just a few words on paint because that is technically the next step where we're moving to. But because I did a whole video on paint, I just want to touch on a couple of things. First of all, I had already chosen the flooring that I wanted to install. So I took a panel of the flooring with me to the paint store. Okay. Second of all, the better the paint, the fewer the coats. So we did the primer and then we had a really good paint, one coat. So if you spend a little more on the paint, it will cover in one coat. And finally, flooring. Let me just say, flooring should be the last thing you do. The beauty of this type of remodel is that we ripped out all of the old carpeting. And so when we were painting, we were just working with the bare floor. There was nothing on it. So as far as drips and getting things on the floor, I didn't worry about it. So kind of like the lesson we learned with paint, the cheaper the flooring, the more problematic it can be. Whenever we did our remodel to the rest of the house, we went with a high-end commercial grade, and that was 15 years ago, and it still looks new. So it was worth it. It does not scratch. We have moved furniture around. We've had dogs. We've had teenage boys. It looks great. And so I know what it's like to get really good flooring and how well it lasts. For the bedroom, I thought, we're going to come in, we're going to go to bed, you know, maybe get up and get dressed, that type of thing. Oh, and by the way, my old flooring, because it was 15 years ago, no longer available. And so I went with a really cheap flooring. And here's what I learned. It scratches really easily. And of course, I'm the first person to put a scratch on the floor. That brings me to my second point when it comes to flooring. If you are going to get a cheaper flooring because it just makes sense and you've been spending a lot of money in areas that really do count, like your paint, and you downgrade your flooring, then go ahead and invest in the marker kit. This marker kit is like a little set of felt tip markers that you can sit down next to your flooring and you color in the scratch, and it really did work. So it was worth the $10 investment in the set of floor markers to fix the scratch that I put in the floor. When I went to buy my flooring, I wasn't really sure how much I needed, and so I took the dimensions of the room and I let the guy who was helping me calculate how much I would need. But evidently he was fairly new, and he calculated how much I would need, and then I said, what kind of padding do I need? And he said, oh, well, with this you just need to have a water barrier. So I said, oh, I thought I needed a padding, because I'm thinking back to when we did our first remodel, had brought in really good padding too. And I said, really? And he said, no, this is fine. And so for like, I don't know, $30 more, I got this water barrier stuff that just looked like plastic sheeting. And so when the guys came to put the floor in, he said, where's your padding? And I said, I didn't think I needed it. And he said, oh my goodness, you need floor padding. This will break. It has to have a cushion. You can't just lay this down on your cement slab. So anyway, we got the padding. The guys came in to do the flooring, and he was getting near the end, and he said, you're short. And he showed me there was one in 3 different boxes. The panel of flooring was cracked. And he said, I can't use this. And I had to literally go get the last box of this flooring that they had. I should have just bought it all at the time. But I went and got that last box, and he wound up using 3 pieces out of that whole box. I did ask, is this common? He said it's always going to happen. The forklift comes along and picks up the pallet, and this one just happens to be on the top. It gets a crack in it, or it gets a split, or it gets a big dent in it right where I need it to go into your floor. So this is very common. We have had French doors in this bedroom, which we have never used. And the reason why we never used them is because I had blackout curtains across the top, and it was such a hassle to open the doors with those blackout curtains. So I found these swing arms that go over the door. When I want to go out the door, the individual arm swings independently of the door, and they're great. And then of course I have a blackout blind on the other window, the stationary window, which makes the room a nice, cool, dark, of course quiet place to sleep. So I would encourage you to check out some of the products that have come out since perhaps you have done a remodel. That being said, don't feel like you have to spend money on everything. Reuse what's already in your house. We wound up using a couple of narrow, shallow, if you will, bookshelves, and created a little mini entertainment center where I put some of my photos. We have a very small television screen and a few of my favorite books, things like that, up against the wall, and I painted it the same color as the wall. So it's very nondescript. It kind of looks like a built-in. So don't be afraid to bring things in from other rooms, repaint them, refashion them so that they now fit the room that you're going to remodel. And I think that you'll be very pleased. Let me show you the remodel.